Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Tonight we're going to be continuing with our playthrough of Eldritch Horror. This is episode 3. I have a couple corrections to address before we begin the playthrough. In the previous episode, you'll remember that both Min and Vincent Lee were in Tunguska, and I made the oversight of giving them a travel ticket. You cannot get travel tickets in wilderness. It has to be in a city, so they should have not been able to travel to Istanbul. They would have been limited to traveling just to the adjoining city where they could have purchased a ticket, but they would not have been able to move to Istanbul and then eventually on to the pyramids. I can't correct that because it's already in the past, but I wanted to point it out to the viewers to not make the same mistakes that I'm making. Next oversight dealt with Vincent Lee. He was in the pyramids and he was battling the Yithian. Well, the Yithian on its token says that if you lose sanity from the will test, you have to move to a random location. So he should not have been able to continue the combat portion against the Yithian. He would have been moved to a random location. So we'll take care of that right now. Lee is going to recover the 2 focus tokens that he used during that combat and the 2 health that he lost during the combat. And he's going to move to a random location, and I've drawn the location Antarctica. So we're going to move Vincent Lee to Antarctica, and we'll have him recover these items, and we're ready to go. The 3 damage that was on the Yithian was from previous, and that was it should have that amount of damage on it. The doom track currently sits at 1, so Nyarlathotep is going to more than likely show himself in the very near future. I'm playing this out just to see what happens. I know that my chances of winning this are probably next to 0, but it might be interesting just to see what happens. So we'll begin with the turn. Min is our lead investigator. Let's take a look at what's happening with her. All right, Min is currently in the pyramids, and she has 1 focus, 2 health, and 1 sanity. She has a hypothermia condition, and she's going to have to move, I think, to a different location where she can rest. So we have to find a location where there's no monsters so that she can do a rest action. I think we'll begin by having her do a move action. She'll use the uncharted path and move to the car. And I think there she will undertake a rest action. Okay, so she's going to undertake a rest action. She has a hypothermia condition. So she's not going to be able to recover health, but she can recover at least 1 sanity. So we'll give her back a sanity. That'll move her sanity level up to 2. And it says when you perform a rest action, you cannot recover health. Roll a die. On a 4 to 6, you can discard the card. So we'll see if she can get rid of the hypothermia condition. And she rolls a 2, so she did not. So she'll keep the card, and we'll move on now to Lola Hayes. Lola is in Tokyo. Lola also has a hypothermia condition, so I think I'll probably have her try to do a rest action to get rid of that. Lola can recover 1 sanity. That'll move her back up to 7, and then we'll make a roll and see if she can get rid of the hypothermia. She rolled a 4, so she can discard the hypothermia. That's good. I think her second action will be a focus action. That'll earn her her 2nd focus token, and we'll leave her in Tokyo. Maybe the main ability of Tokyo is to defeat monsters, so maybe we can somehow defeat the Yithian or something like that in the pyramids. We'll move on to Vincent Lee. He is in Antarctica. Vincent Lee also has a hypothermia condition, and I guess we'll try to do a rest action for him in Antarctica. That'll allow him to recover a sanity. That'll move his sanity level up to 3, and then we'll make the roll for the hypothermia condition. And he rolled a 3, so that's not good enough. He'll keep the hypothermia. I think for his second action, he is going to gain a resource token, so we'll give him a resource. And we'll move on now to Zoe Samaras. Zoe has the hypothermia condition and the hunted condition. So I think probably the best thing we can do is I'll have her move perhaps to Dakar, and she can match up with Min. That'll give them each a +1 because of Min's passive ability. And we can try to get rid of the hunted condition and the hypothermia condition. So our first action will be a move action for Zoe. She'll move to Dakar, and then we can have her attempt to get rid of that hunted condition. The hunted condition says that when you perform a travel action, you may roll a die on a 5 or 6. You can discard the card, so we'll try to do that. And she rolls a 6, so we're able to discard the hunted condition. That is good. Next up, she's going to do a rest action, and we'll try to get rid of this hypothermia card. She'll be able to regain 1 sanity, moving her back up to 7. That's full capacity. And we'll see about this hypothermia condition. She needs to get a 4, 5, or 6. And she's failed, so she'll keep the hypothermia. We'll move on to the encounters phase, and we'll begin with Min. She is in Dakar, French West Africa. We'll have her pull a generic wilderness encounter. And her encounter reads, you search through a series of labyrinthine tunnels to find a legendary lost treasure. Test observation -1. All right, her observation is 3. She gains 1 for having a fellow character in the space. That'll be up to 4 -1. She'll be rolling 3 dice for the test. And here's her roll. And she's passed it. She's got 2 successes. We'll read on. If you pass, you discover it within a subterranean chamber. Gain 1 artifact. That's great. And she gains the Scales of Thoth. Item, magical relic. Gain +2 to all skills if your health and sanity are equal. During a reckoning phase, lose a health and or sanity. Okay. Next up is Lola Hayes. She's in Tokyo, and we'll take an Asia-Australia encounter card in Tokyo. And her encounter reads, an American is using mathematics to travel between dimensions. As you try to find him, a dark figure offers you help. Test observation -2. Well, Lola has an observation of 2, so she's only going to be able to roll the 1 base dice. And here's the roll. She rolls a 3. Well, we'll spend 1 of her focus tokens and try to re-roll that. A failure. We'll use her last one. And she's failed, so we'll have to read the failed condition. If you fail, the search leaves you exhausted, lose a sanity. Okay, well, she's going to lose a sanity. That moves her down to 6 sanity. And we'll move on now to Vincent Lee. He is in Antarctica. All right, Vincent Lee, I think he's going to attempt the expedition. So we're going to have him draw an expedition card. He draws the card, Antarctica. You find what you believe to be star-shaped burial mounds in the snow. It is physically exhausting, but you try to dig the bodies out of the ice and snow. Test strength. Vincent Lee has a strength of 3 currently. And here's his roll. And he's rolled 2 successes, so we will continue reading. An odd relic lies next to the creature's corpse. Gain an artifact. All right, let's get an artifact. And he gains the artifact Fetch Stick. Item, magical weapon. Gain +6 strength during combat encounters. If you defeat a monster during a combat encounter, gain 1 clue. Wow, that's a powerful card. Okay, we'll continue reading. It says here, then you examine the body. Observation -1. Okay, he has an observation value of 3, so he'll be rolling 2 dice for the test. And he's got a success. All right. And that's all it is. It would be a fail condition. If we failed it, there is no other further bonus by passing it. So we did pretty good there. That's great. And the expedition remains in Antarctica, so we will leave the expedition token there. And now it's Zoe Samaras' turn, and she'll take a generic wilderness encounter in Dakar. And the encounter reads, a family of cannibals traps you in their ramshackle hut. Test strength. All right, Zoe has a strength currently. She has one. It was 3, but it's down to 2 because she had a diminished token on there. But she gains 1 back for Min being there, so she'll be rolling 3 dice for this test. And we'll see what happens. And she's failed. She has no focus tokens. So we'll have to read the fail condition. And it says if you fail, you hide for days, waiting for a chance to escape, become delayed. Okay. All right, so the delayed investigator is just tipped on their side temporarily, and they can perform no actions until they right themselves the next turn. That will finish up the encounter phase. We'll move on to the Mythos phase. And the Mythos card is revealed to be a dark path. We're going to begin with an omen track movement. So the omen track is going to move to the blue star pattern, and we're going to lose doom track equal to the number of blue gates on the board. We currently have a total of 4 of them, and that is going to put us to 0. And Nyarlathotep is going to awaken. It says when he awakens, flip this sheet and resolve the Nyarlathotep awakens effect on the back. Let's take a look at that. All right, and that reads, place 1 Eldritch token on the red space of the omen track. Then move the omen to that space without advancing doom. Okay. So we're going to place an Eldritch token on the red symbol and move the token to there. All right, let's see what other things are going to happen with Nyarlathotep. Well, the cultists now are going to have a horror equal to the number of Eldritch tokens that they have. So that's going to make dealing with them a little bit more difficult. Sealing the Great Gate, the final mystery. After you resolve an expedition encounter or a Mystic Ruins encounter, you may gain the Eye of Light unique asset or the Eye of Darkness unique asset. At the beginning of the Mythos phase, if 2 mysteries have been solved, and all investigators are on the same space, they possess both the Eye of Light and the Eye of Darkness, each investigator may spend a total of 6 health and or sanity to complete the final mystery, and the investigators would win the game. Wow, we're quite a ways from that happening. Then it has the Crawling Chaos. When you have Eldritch tokens equal to or greater than your maximum sanity, you're devoured. Each time the doom would advance, each investigator gains an Eldritch token instead. Then, if all investigators have been eliminated, the investigators lose. When the omen advances to the red space in the omen track, the investigators lose. All right. All right, the next portion of the card is a monster surge. So what we have to do is examine the player card for 4 players, and we'll find out how many monsters will appear on the gates of the current omen track. Now that's red. So we're going to have to place 2 monsters on each red gate. There are currently 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 red gates on the board. We'll be deploying a total of 16 monsters to these gates, and I'll do that off camera and I'll let you know the results. All right, I've placed all the monsters due to the monster surge on the board. I actually ran out of monster stands. There's so many on the board. So I've placed those. Some of these are just terrible ones. Haunting Horror and a Dark Young in Atlantis. I mean, it's just endless. I'm not even going to go over those. As we play through, we'll see on the board where they are. The next step is clues. We have to spawn 2 clues. We have 1 in Istanbul and 1 in Space 19, so we'll place them accordingly. And finally, we'll go to the event, A Dark Path. The old man listens carefully to your story. When you finish, he looks you coldly in the eye. What would you give to stem the tide of darkness? An unearthly chiming comes from the old bottles on the shelves. Event, each Investigator advances Doom by 1 unless he gains 1 deal condition. All right, well, we would have no choice but to take the deal conditions. So I'll deal out a deal condition to each player. If the Doom goes, for every time we can't advance the Doom, we gain Eldritch tokens. So we'll have to do that. And as a result of that, we've got a debt condition for Min, a debt condition for Lola, a Dark Pact for Vincent Lee, and a debt condition for Zoe Samaras. And that will complete the turn. And with all of this happening, I actually regret that I'm continuing this playthrough because this is, I think it's unwinnable. What I'm going to do is I'm going to play out the rest of the game off camera, and then we'll rejoin at the end and we'll see how I can do. I think it would just be too long to continue this. Even just going through the reckoning phases for the monsters that are on the board is going to take an enormous amount of time. So I'll just play through this off camera and we'll rejoin in a bit and I'll let you know what happens. I think we all know what the result is going to be, but we'll try it. Well, I'm back, and not surprisingly, we lost. We had Min and Lola Hayes and Vincent Lee were all devoured. I had just Zoe Samaras left. She was in the pyramids. I made great progress. I was slashing through monsters like a ninja assassin and attempting to get back to the pyramids to solve that labyrinth of Queen Nyarlathotep, and I just couldn't do it. As the heroes began to be devoured, I had less heroes to disperse the Eldritch tokens on, and that's where it was almost a snowball effect, and that's how we lost. Ended up taking me with all of these reckoning effects, with all these monsters. It took over an hour and a half to play through this. I can imagine filming would have been probably 3 hours. So needless to say, we lost, but let's do a post-mortem on this and see if we can learn something from this. Well, the main thing that killed us was this white ship rumor, and when that went off, all the gates opened up on the board, and that was the final play on this. If I would have had an extra clue token, I could have played that to prevent that from happening, but I only had the 1 clue, which was a disaster. I had that event that added 2 Eldritch tokens, or removed 2 Eldritch tokens from that card, and at that point I didn't even have the ability to get the clue tokens I would have needed to stop that from happening, and that was the main problem. So I think what I'm going to do in the future is I'm probably going to remove these difficult cards from, at least from the blue deck. Those are like a game killer if it happens to come up and you can't deal with it. I had the opportunity. I knew I had 3 turns, and I never dreamed that there would be a card that would come up that would take 2 Eldritch tokens away from that card, putting me down to just 1 turn to deal with it. So that was probably the biggest problem, is that card combined with that next card was an absolute killer. But I think in the future I might remove these difficult rumor cards from the draw before we set up our Mythos deck, and at least it would prevent these catastrophic things from happening like this. I mean, you're still going to have difficult cards in the draw, but not like this. I mean, where every gate came out. I mean, oh boy. So anyway, I hope that you aren't going to hold it against me for filming this in completion, but it would have taken another 3 hours to film this, and we still would have ended up with the same results. So at least we can learn a little bit from this, and in your games you might want to consider possibly taking those difficult cards out of at least the rumor deck, and it will prevent you from getting a catastrophic result like this, which is really no fun to play through. So that's going to bring this playthrough to a close. It was not very enjoyable to watch, I'm sure, and it certainly wasn't enjoyable for me to play this. But I think what I'm going to do is, since this was such a busted game, I'm going to be bringing Eldritch Horror back to the channel in the near future. sooner rather than later. And we'll try it without these difficult cards in the rumor deck, and maybe we can get a good playthrough. I kind of wouldn't mind trying to play against Cthulhu, and I think that might be an interesting playthrough. So we'll see what happens, though. So thanks for watching, and I hope you kind of laughed along with me as we played through this very terrible version of Eldritch Horror. Thanks for watching, and I hope everyone has a nice evening. And I look forward to seeing you again at the Solo Gamers Club. In the meantime, have a nice evening.